Even as a child, I really struggled with family gatherings, and kind of a photo that epitomises kind of what depression is there's my mum's one of 7, and there's all my cousins around at my granny and granddad's 50th, and I'm sat alone on the stairs behind everybody because I just couldn't socialise or be around people, because especially birthdays and Christmas, I just end up crying because I think there was so much. I really wanted to be happy. There's so much expectation to be happy on those days, and when you are depressed, it's impossible. It makes you even more emotional, really, that expectation. The major part of depression is a lack of finding joy in many things, and feeling very numb from that. I mean, as well as not going out, I barely ate when I was like 14. I just stopped going to school as well. And then when I did go to school, and when I was kind of doing my GCSEs, I would just go off to the music department and find an empty classroom and just sit in there and read, because I just couldn't be around people. And I'd read in class, and my teachers obviously would be really offended, but I just couldn't engage in the lesson at all, and I'd just be sat there reading because I was so unhappy. So we went to the doctor, and I was referred to a CAMHS unit, and from there was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and I had kind of general counselling. I had a really great counsellor, and that definitely really helped. But I mean, the saddest thing about depression is, for me as well, is that I remember how I felt before I had it. Even when I was younger, I mean, maybe it's just nostalgia and I'm looking back with rose-tinted glasses, but I kind of remember, there's only kind of once every month or every 2 months or so I'll feel above it, and I'll be able to see things clearly, because depression is a distortion on the senses, and the way you perceive reality is distorted. So you see things often in a negative light. You'll interpret situations and think people are kind of ill thinking of you when they're not even considering you. I think because depression is such a kind of an insular and kind of inward-looking illness. Well, it was just that it was the lack of interest in doing things anymore. I was doing drama as a child, and I did that from aged 8, and it was just a crisis of confidence when I was diagnosed with depression, and I haven't really acted since. But I couldn't do it anymore because I was so low in mood all the time. I mean, I think when I was younger, I was quite tearful with depression, but mostly it was I just couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to, I still find that hard now, that there will be times where I don't want to see people, and I feel guilty, and I resent myself for that. And I felt that way because when you're 14, you're meant to be socialising and having fun with friends. And when I tried to talk to friends about it, their reaction was more, it's your problem. It's not really something I want to deal with, because they're not equipped to deal with it. Because I remember very clearly telling my best friend, a girl, and she was just like, she got angry almost, because I think she was scared because she didn't know how to deal with it, really. And I was ashamed of that. I've always been more ashamed of having kind of depression and mental illness than being gay. I never really had an issue with being gay. It was more people when you're depressed, you're having to act how you're not feeling. So when I was going out with friends, and I would go to Derby Town Square every Saturday, and I wouldn't feel like doing it, but I felt like it's what I should be doing. So you make yourself do it. I mean, it's really unhealthy in a way. You get into this way of putting on a persona and a mask. And I think some people found that quite unsettling. I remember people saying that I was kind of creepy and stuff like that. But I think it's when they'd catch me off guard, when I wasn't this kind of happy and funny individual. They'd see me analysing the situation, or they'd catch what I was really feeling like, and that would really disarm people, because it was like I was being deceitful around them. But if I was acting how I felt all the time, then people wouldn't want to be around me. The hardest thing in depression is the motivation to go out and do something. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes I've made myself do something and and I've really been glad I have done it, but it's more the thought of doing it that's so overwhelming, and the thought of brushing my teeth is so overwhelming, the thought of getting out of bed is so overwhelming. But it's really hard because you don't know if you really have got the energy or you really can cope with something. The only way you can is if you try, but you also don't want to constantly keep putting yourself out there and wearing yourself out and trying to do everything and be normal if you're not well enough. So it's quite a challenge to balance giving yourself a break and saying, I need to stay at home, or actually I can do this and go out. When you're swimming underwater and you keep swimming and you need to come up for air, and there's that panic of where you're getting near the surface, it's that kind of intense emotion, but kind of perpetually. That's how I used to describe it even when I was 7 or 8. I mean, I didn't know that just used to be more like how I just describe how I was feeling, really. It's just that numbness and feeling that not feeling present. It's withdrawing from the present, and that makes you feel isolated.